A recent article in Nature informs us that sweeping claims about the effects of exposure to false content online are inconsistent with much of the current empirical evidence. Instead, the authors of the article claim that actual exposure to false and inflammatory content is hardly significant at all. It is concentrated among a narrow fringe of people with strong motivations to seek out such information. In other words, the dire threat to the public order posed by what some call disinformation has no real substance and little impact on democracy. In short, this fear campaign is a case of disinformation about disinformation, or, to put it more bluntly, lying about lying. It isn't difficult to see why such a campaign exists. The powerful will always seek ways to stifle dissent. By exaggerating the potency of disinformation in social media, they can justify the severe measures they're willing to take to censure not just harmful content, but especially the constructive criticism that makes them uncomfortable. The article makes a significant point about the consumers of disinformation. It's personal preferences, not algorithms, that lead people to this content. Only those who seek such content are likely to be exposed, and they seek it because they are already convinced by its message. The New York Times likes to claim it is a beacon of truth as it rails against information it doesn't like. The paper recently claimed, quote, that it is well known that social media amplifies misinformation and other harmful content, unquote. A careful reader of the paper might justifiably object that it is equally well known that the New York Times itself routinely amplifies misinformation and other harmful content. You don't believe us? Over the years, former New York Times journalist Patrick Lawrence and others, including Fair Observer's own Devil's Dictionary, have regularly featured analysis of how the Grey Ladies journalists twist the information they report, particularly with topics such as Russiagate, the Havana Syndrome, and more tragically, foreign wars in which the U.S. is involved. The simple fact is that no language used in any media, including this video, is totally innocent and truthful. The stronger the motivation to twist the message, whether it is delivered in a tweet or an article appearing in a newspaper of record, exaggeration and persuasion in some form will be likely to occur. The other simple but sad fact is that we live in a culture in which some form of disinformation has become the norm rather than the exception. Why? Because news, just like the deodorant you buy, is subject to the laws of the marketplace in a competitive society. In U.S. culture in particular, competitive success requires the virtue of assertiveness. To be assertive, you must put forward what you think others will see as attractive, even if it isn't totally true, and hide what they are likely not to appreciate. Honesty and sincerity must be temporarily put aside if you wish to be effectively assertive. In such a culture, we should never expect information to be transparently true. Doing so can be fatal. The authors of the Nature article highlight a second dimension of the culture of free markets and competition, the fact that people will inevitably seek out what they want to hear. They can thus be seen as a marketplace to respond to. Anyone perceptive and assertive enough will be in a position to provide them with what they want to consume and, of course, profit from it. It doesn't matter whether it's true or false, or whether the providers themselves believe it. That is precisely how marketplaces work, whether it's news or drugs, legal or illegal. Laws may obscure the reality of the business that takes place at the margins of legality, but they don't abolish it. Indeed, repressive measures tend to make it more profitable. Recently, former Democratic presidential candidate John Kerry called the First Amendment a major block to be able to hammer disinformation out of existence. Does he really believe he can purify the world by hammering disinformation out of existence? If so, he might start by hammering on someone who is friendly enough to listen to his advice. The New York Times. That effort alone should keep him busy for quite a while. Kerry's remark reminds us that U.S. culture has retained a feature of its Puritan heritage often used in the past and usually applied to the rest of the world. It consists of the obsession with ridding the world of what it perceives as evil. For Joe McCarthy, it was communists and fellow travelers. Since Woodrow Wilson, more than a century ago, it has been waging wars to eradicate despotism and establish democracy. Like McCarthy, it is focusing again on its own citizens to ensure that their thinking and expression remains in conformity with a new version of political scripture. Is that what American exceptionalism means? To realize its ideal of appearing as the shining city on the hill, its leaders apparently wish that all other candles be extinguished, and that theirs will be the only light allowed to shine across the land.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.